I've read a lot of stories this year. Stories that touched my heart, made me want to be a better writer, made me want to be a better human. Stories that helped me escape and enjoy the fun of living or the fun of not being in my life. And stories that kept me on the edge of my seat because, oh my gosh, I was scared to death. And how were they ever going to get out of that situation? And stories that I had to reread because I needed to know, how did the writer do that? How did they keep me turning those pages? How did they make me fall in love with those characters so deeply that I didn't want to leave that world? They were all wonderful. But the story that I want to talk about today is a movie, The Banshees of Inisherin by Martin McDonagh. It is extraordinary, and it's completely erased every single book that I have loved out of my mind. All I want to do is watch this movie. I've watched it 3 times. And when I haven't had time to watch it all the way through, I watch the trailers or I watch interviews so I can see the clips. That's how much I love this movie. It is the most powerful illustration of truth in storytelling that I have ever come across. It's a wonderful example of that which grows simplest grows best. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to do too much. Sometimes you just have to zero in and connect. And that can bring layers of nuance that all of the effort can't. Martin McDonagh's film, The Banshees of Inisherin, does this in a beautiful, poetic way that I feel the characters inside me as I'm talking to you. And how does he do that? It's just very simple. Everything is so very simple. How do you start a story? Well, what is a story? There is a world where a character lives, and then something happens that changes his life. Something unexpected comes along and throws him for a loop. And this happens like that in The Banshees. Patrick is going to pick up his friend, Cullum, so they can go to the pub. They do it every day. 2:00. They go to the pub. They talk. Cullum doesn't even come to the door. He doesn't even acknowledge his existence when he taps on the window. Mrs. McCormick says to him, "Cullum's sonny Larry, you and he used to be best of friends." "We are still best of friends." "No, you're not. That's the whole ball of wax." When Cullum finally sees Patrick at the pub, Patrick wants to know what he did. "Why aren't you speaking to me?" And Cullum says, "I don't like you anymore." And Patrick says, "Well, you liked me yesterday." That's it. That's all of it. That's the whole backstory. Within the first 15 minutes of the film, you know everything you need to know. But you don't know anything, do you? You don't know any details about Cullum's life or Patrick's life. You don't know how they became friends. You don't know the things that they've been through. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that they were friends and they're not. Night and day. It's a small thing, a very small thing. How can a story be about such a small thing? Friends that aren't friends anymore. How do you make that interesting? Well, McDonagh places the 2 characters on Inisherin. Inisherin is an island, a fictitious island. I don't know how many, maybe a couple hundred, I don't know how many people there, not very many. And because it's this isolated community, everybody knows everybody else's business. "Mrs. McCormick, didn't Cullum's sonny Larry and you used to be best of friends?" "No, you're not." She knows it. Everybody at the pub knows it. Everybody in town knows it. There is this pressure because everybody knows everybody else, even if they don't say anything. You know they're thinking something. You know that they're watching you. You know that for Patrick, he used to have a friend and now he doesn't. And everybody knows that. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of tension. That's a lot of high stakes. How is he going to fix that? Which brings us back to the second really important thing about storytelling. You have a world that is uprooted and you have characters that want something. Cullum wants to be alone. Cullum doesn't want to hang out with Patrick. Patrick wants his friend back, wants the relationship back the way it used to be. He wants them to be friends again because it was lovely and nice and it was his world. Both of these characters want what they want more than anything else. They will do whatever they can to get it. That is essential. Patrick will try tactic 1, tactic 2, tactic 3. He will go about it any which way he can to get in Cullum's face, to get Cullum to change his mind. He's always looking for a different way. That's movement, that's action, that's interesting. Cullum, on the other hand, doesn't want that. How is he going to get Patrick to get the fact that he doesn't want to hang out with him anymore? He goes to an extreme. And this really isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer. Cullum says, if you keep bothering me, every time you bother me, I'm going to take the shears that I have at home and I'm going to cut off my finger. And I'm going to do it every time until you realize I don't want to have anything to do with you. You got to be kidding me, right? You got to be kidding me. Even the whole town's like, you got to be kidding me. It's not going to happen, right? And yet he really means it. And he does. And the story escalates from there. It's a simple, extreme choice that Cullum makes. But he'd rather lose a finger than not achieve his goal. That is risky. That is a character that wants what he wants more than anything else for a particular reason. He wants it more than friendship, more than connection. He wants to be left alone because he has a dream and he wants to be able to fulfill it. And so he'll do whatever it takes. That is compelling. How a person is willing to risk absolutely everything, possibly their life, in order to achieve the goal that they want. Well, if that doesn't change your view on life, I don't know what does. There's a situation that gets uprooted. There are characters that want what they want more than anything, that ratchets up the stakes. There is an environment that creates a pressure cooker for the characters within that world, and there is love. Cullum doesn't want to be Patrick's friend. How is that love? Well, one of the first acting lessons I ever learned was when two characters are arguing about breaking up, when they no longer want to be together, when they're having that conflict. They say they hate each other, but the bottom line is they love each other. That's why it hurts so much. They have experienced love with this other person. And that's why the fact that the relationship isn't working is tearing them apart. And yet they have to do it in order to save themselves. And this is true in the Banshees of Inisherin. There are moments in the film where it's clear, more clear than anything else, that Cullum really cares for Patrick. And Patrick really cares for Cullum. And when you have those moments, each one of those moments, I thought, oh, okay, they're going to get back together. They're going to be able to fix what's broken. And it doesn't work because they continue to want what they want and go after what they want. And yet they still love each other. That connection, that humanness of understanding, of empathy for another person, even if you can no longer live with them, that is a really powerful, it's a really powerful thing to remember. It keeps us moving forward. The fact that we can share our feelings with one another, even though we have differences. The other delicious thing about the Banshees of Inisherin has to do with dialogue. And Martin McDonagh's dialogue is, well, it's best described, I think, from Mrs. McCormick, who is this delightful character. And she's more or less, she's sort of like a seer. She can foretell. And she makes a prediction that, oh, there is a darkness, there is maybe a death is coming. And we have to pray that it won't happen to you and yours. And Patrick says, well, that's not very nice. And Mrs. McCormick says, I wasn't trying to be nice. I was trying to be accurate. And that accuracy is exactly what Martin McDonagh's screenplay is all about. The characters never speak more than they need to. They say exactly what they want to say and nothing else. They are precise. They are accurate, and then there's nothing. These characters don't say anything more than is necessary. These characters never censor, which creates more conflict, which creates more tension, which ups the stakes. But the fact that they're doing it in these scenes also leads you to understand that they really don't do it the rest of the time. They censor themselves a lot because they're nice. Being nice is important on the Isle of Inisherin. But these people do censor in most of their lives. But when they come into a situation in these scenes, then they do not censor. They say exactly what's on their mind. And they say it with as much precision and accuracy as possible. And because they don't say anything more than is necessary to get their point across, then McDonagh is able to use the wonderful element of repetition to drive the point home, which is an interesting thing because writers are often told not to repeat. If you say it once, fine. Say it, move on. Don't repeat yourself. But McDonagh does. McDonagh's characters repeat themselves. They don't say something like what they just said. They say the exact thing over and over again in threes. They say what's on their mind, and they say it again, and they say it again, or somebody else says it for them. That power of repetition then is followed with a silence. The dialogue is accurate, it's specific, it is repeated, and there's nothing. And in that nothingness, that silence, that's when you see how the words impact the characters. And you see how that changes their point of view and how the choices they make are going to be different. It's extraordinary. It's so simple. I want to learn how to do that. The reason the repetition works is the repetition drives home the point. And then the silence forces the character to face the issues that they have been avoiding. And in doing so, they will change course. This is particularly important for Padraig's sister, Siobhan. The Banshees of Inisherin. I am so overwhelmed by the power of the storytelling in its simplicity that I fear I am not doing it justice or communicating it very well to you all. My hope, though, is that I have made you curious enough that you will go out or stay in however you watch movies and watch it. And I dare to say that if you watch it once, you will watch it at least a second time, if not a third, and maybe a few trailers. Because The Banshees of Inisherin by Martin McDonagh is in some ways a little story, a much ado about nothing, that is so powerfully told that it's about everything, our fears and our love and life and desire and learning how to live.